Hello, my name is Nilav and welcome to the advanced character rigging tutorial in After Effects. In this video we are going to create a fully functional character rig with face turns and all the limbs in After Effects using three main plugins: Duik, Rubberhose and Joysticks and Sliders. Although this is a bit advanced tutorial, but if you have never used After Effects or if you are a beginner, you can still follow along step by step and I'm sure you'll be able to create the same result. If you want to watch the beginner level tutorial, I'll link that in the description below, so maybe you can start there and then come back to this one. But nevertheless, I'll still cover the basics in this tutorial itself. Let's get started. Now, before we start rigging, I just want to talk about the workspace setup in After Effects and the plugins that we are going to use. So this is the layout that I am using in After Effects. You can change this layout by going to Windows, Workspace, and you have multiple options here. I have saved this custom layout. So for example, while animating, I have this animation layout where I have two screens, two composition views and the timeline horizontally. And for rigging, I have a different layout. I'll just go to Windows, Workspace and Rigging. So this setup has the layers vertically here and the composition vertical, so that I can see the character vertically in a bigger window and adjust the layers vertically. I get more screen space to handle the layers and its properties. Then for this advanced rig purpose, we are going to use three plugins: Rubberhose, Joysticks and Sliders and Duik. Out of these three, Duik is a free tool in which almost everything can happen, so I encourage you to go check that out. But the Joysticks and Sliders and Rubberhose are paid plugins, but let me tell you that they are well worth the money and they'll help you in long term creating very advanced and easy to use rigs. Now with that said, let's import our character in After Effects. We can do that by either double clicking on the project window here, or we go to File, Import and Import File, right? So I'll just do that. I'll just double click here and I have the AI file that we had already sorted out selected. Just click on Composition, Retain Layers in the Import As option and click on Open. You will get the layer as a composition. Let's just double click that and now you can see, I'll just move this away. You can see I have a bigger view of the character and the layer stack here. I can just hide the background layer. To make the background of a different color for better visibility, let's just go to Composition and Composition Settings and change the BG to somewhat of a gray color. And we are ready to start rigging our character. Let's start by rigging the limbs first, and then we'll go to torso, and then we'll rig the head, which is more complicated than the rest of the body. So I have the Duik Angela or Duik plugin. It's more or less the same thing. You can open it up by going to Window and it will show up somewhere here in the panel. Now we need to go to this tab, Links and Constraints, and we're going to keep it fairly simple. Let's start with leg 2 here. I'll just hide the leg 1, which is an extra vector that we created for the leg turn. Let's start with leg 1. When we are rigging with Duik, it doesn't matter where the pivot point, the default pivot point or the anchor point is, but nevertheless let's set that to where it will be joined to the torso. Let's go to Pan Behind tool in the toolbar or press Y for the shortcut and move this here where we think the leg will be joined. You can solo this layer by clicking on this little dot here. So if you click, only that layer will be visible and you can see where you have exactly placed the anchor point. Now select the puppet pin tool at the top and create 4 pins starting from top to bottom. So let's click here and then at the knee, which is slightly outward so that it bends inward. So this is the knee position, and then the heel and the toe. Now you can move the pins and see how they affect the vector, but we are not done yet. After adding the pins, it is important for us to rename the pins because we are going to add similar pins on the right side as well, and if the names are same, then the programming will be conflicted and it will not really work. So when you add the pins on a layer, you get the effect tab, and under that there's puppet. You just open up the mesh and go to deform, and you see we have 4 puppet pins. So puppet pin 1, 2, 3 and 4. So let's just right click and rename them. This will be right leg, so I'm going to rename this as R leg 1, R leg 2 and so forth. Now select all these pins here in the layer stack, so all these pins will be filled yellow, and click on the add pins again in the Duik panel. You will notice that we have visual pins added to the After Effects pins that we created. Initially these were called bones, so if you are on an older version of Duik, you will see that the controller will say add bones and not pins, but it is more or less the same thing. For example, now if I move this pin number 4, it in turn moves the actual pin that we have created in After Effects, so it acts like a controller to that pin. Okay, now to create an IK rig, which is inverse kinematics rig, where we select this controller, and if we move this, the leg will bend and act naturally. What we need to do is select the R3, which is the heel pin, and go backwards. Okay, so remember this, this might get a little bit confusing because of just numbers here, but the important thing is in IK you need to select the pin where you want the controller first. So in this case it is the heel. This is where the leg controller will be. So select this, and then the second one, and then the first one in this particular order and not the other way around. Okay, and click auto rig. Now Duik will work its magic, and you will get a controller, a blue controller here, which comes at the top of the layer stack. And now if you move this controller, you can see that the leg is bending as we want it, right? But we still have a problem that the toe is still stuck here, so we want to give this one a controller as well, or else let's just parent this to this controller. Okay, so this is a guide layer, this controller and the bones will not render in the final output. So let's just bring this down on this stack, then select the R leg 4 pin. Let me just move this around, and you see a parent pick whip button here. It's a little spiral icon here. Select that and bring it, just drag this thread and drop it on top of the controller. Okay, so this layer is parented to this one, so this becomes the controller of this layer. Now if I move this layer, the feet moves with it, and if I rotate this layer, for example, the feet rotates with it. Okay, and this is how we have our rig of one leg. And in a very similar way, let me just isolate these controllers so it will be better for you to understand. We have a controller now, we don't need these pins, so select all of them and just hide them from the view, so it is much cleaner. You can even shy guy them from the layer once you're done with them, which is like you just click on this alienish icon, and if this button is on, they'll just hide away from this layer stack itself. Don't worry, they are still there. If you just turn it off, you can see these layers, but they will not show up in the layer stack, keeping your workspace clean. Okay, and now I have this controller and the leg, and it's a pretty good bend in the knee. You can change some of the bending properties in here, like the weight and the ratio of how you want the effect to affect the vector, but I'm going to keep it at default right now. This is how simple it is. You just have to remember the sequence of selection of the bones. You have to select the first pin as the heel, then the knee, and then the hip one, and then click on auto rig here. If you are again on the older version of Duik, instead of auto rig, the button will say IK rig, but it's more or less the same thing. And just to show you how this will work from the top side as well, so let me isolate the torso and the leg. okay, and we also want our bones to be visible. So here is the pin which is just hiding behind the torso. So what I need to do is connect this to the torso itself. Again, I'm going to make this a child of the torso. I'll click on this pick whip and drop it down on the torso, so torso becomes the dominant one, and if I press the torso down, the leg will move with it. This is how IK legs will work. We can do the same thing for the hands to have controllers on the wrists, and then we can move them. But for the hands, I like to use Rubberhose instead of Duik because it gives you better bends at the elbows, and you can even adjust the roundness of those bends, which is like getting more control over the arms, because arms is something that you're going to move more if your character is mostly standing and not moving too much. You can apply that same principle to the legs itself, which I'll show you in just a minute. So let's just finish up doing the other leg and an extra leg as well, and then move on to the arms by using Rubberhose instead of Duik. Now I have both the legs rigged, and I've connected them to the hips instead of the torso. So I have a hip shape here, a circular hip shape. So I've connected the top part of the legs to the hips. And if you want the legs to bend in the other direction, I just want to quickly show you. You can select the controller, and you have a property here called side, and it's -100 right now. And if you just type in 100, it will bend to the other side, which can become handy if you want to have a character turn. Now with both legs done, let's go and start doing our arms with Rubberhose. Open up the Rubberhose window and you will see that the menu is fairly simple. We have some preset options here like shoulder, wrist, hip, ankle, shoulder and hips. We are simply going with shoulder and wrist creation because we want to create the arms. Let us first isolate one of the arm here, so we have a clear space to work in. I'll just select this arm R and hand R, which should be actually L for left and hand left. So let's rename that as well, and rename the other one as R, that is for right. Now with this, as it is a vector illustrator design, we are not going to use this one. We're just going to use this as reference because Rubberhose creates its own shapes right inside After Effects. So once you select shoulder and wrist, click on this new Rubberhose, and it will create a shape which has a shoulder and a wrist. The shape is very standard and does not look anything like our arm, but we are going to edit it referencing this design. Okay, so let's put this shoulder part at just beside the actual shoulder design, and then the wrist. Notice that this is too long for us right now, but once you select the wrist in the effects and controller panel, you have an option to increase or decrease hose length. So let's just reduce this just a little bit, so it's a kind of a straight hand, not really, just a little bit of bend. All right, and we have a similar length of the arm here. Now you can also change the bend radius and the realism. Like I said, Rubberhose gives you a lot more control than Duik, and lots cleaner control than Duik. So if I just bend this, you can see the bend is pretty natural. I can also increase the roundness of that bend or make it completely sharp, decrease this, but I'm going to keep it at default, slightly rounded for now. And also changing bend direction is very similar. It's 100 right now, and if you type in -100, it will just turn the other way, which is very good for body turns. Now we have the arm. What we need to adjust is the width of it, the tapering, the color, etc. Okay, notice that we have the hand as separate, so we can just hide this here if we want, and this is something we will just attach it to our newly created shape here. Alright, so the shape we have created has the wrist controller, the shoulder controller, and the hose. And hose is essentially a stroke in After Effects. So if you just drop it down into the contents, the style, and the base hose. Okay, so it has arc, stroke. Just drop down the stroke, you can pick the color, composite color, and just pick it from the main design. And then we have a tapering option, so just go to taper and play around with the start and end lengths. Okay, so if you notice, let me just zoom in a little bit. If I just taper the start length, it starts tapering very sharply. And also it has option to have a round cap or a butt cap. Okay, so if I just select a butt cap, it will be sharp at the end points, but at the top we really don't want that. So either we duplicate this stroke or just play around with the start length. Let me simply change the background of the composition because I think it's getting hard to see this color. Let me just make it a little bit whiter. Yeah, that's pretty good. Now let's change this back to round cap and check the end length. So if this is too sharp, we can adjust the end width here. So play with the end length as the taper and change the end width to make it a little bit rounded, and also the end ease so that it eases in pretty well. This is something we will have to play around with, and it might not come exactly as the design itself, but it is pretty good and more geometric than our manual design, so we can change this as we want. Now let's increase the stroke width as well so that it matches our arm design. I'm going to increase this a little and then change the arm length and taper the end slightly more. Now if you notice that if we change the round cap to butt cap, it does it for both the ends, and we don't want that, so we might have to duplicate this hose again. Let me show you how. Just select the main base hose and press Command or Control D to duplicate this, and this is now above our main hose. And let me just change the color of this one to something else so that we can differentiate between them. Now let's just select this as butt cap. Both are housed inside the same hose, so if I move the controller, both hoses will move, both the strokes will move. Now we just want to cut this off at this side, so let's go back to our base hose and add a little bit of effect here. You can see that at the top where the contents text is, you have this little add button which will add more effects to it, and if you select this base hose, go to add and just select trim paths. Okay, so this will trim the path from either ends. Let's go down here and no, it's not the end, but it's the start. So if I increase this, it is just reducing the start part of it. Let me hide this stroke so you'll be able to see it better, and I'm just reducing the length of this one. Let me turn this hose on, and now you can see that we have a rounded one at the back and the square one at the front. Now we just have to match the colors of both, so stroke 1 will match the color of stroke 2 so that it just vanishes behind that. And now if you just close all of this, we have a shape which is rounded at the top and squared off at the bottom, and both are working really fine together. And that's how we create the arm. Now we just need to add this hand here. Just place it like you want. I'm just going to bring all of these down on top of this hand, and we don't need this arm anymore, so just hide it away and guide the same. You can even delete this because we now have a new shape here. Now just parent this hand again to the wrist controller, and the pivot of the wrist controller is here, so if I just rotate this, the hand will move, and if I move this controller, the palm or the hand will move with it. And that's how we create a really flexible arm. So if I just bend this and change the bend direction, it will bend the other way, and it does it so smoothly that if you animate this, it looks like you are actually changing the hand is actually being animated from left to right. and we can play around with the bend radius to make it sharper or rounder, whichever feels more natural to you according to your character design. I'll just bring back all of these shapes, and I'll select the shoulder and the wrist. Let's bring it here somewhere. And this is the exact process you need to repeat to create the other hand as well, but you don't need to go through all of that process again really. Just select all three of these layers, go to style or manage, and if you see here that there is a option called duplicate selected host group, just click on them, and you see the host 2, shoulder, wrist and actual host 2 are created right where the host 1 is. Just select them and bring them at the top, and select the wrist and shoulder, and let's bring it to the side. Now this will obviously have the bend at the other direction, so let's make this -100, and we can just move the shoulders and place the arms wherever we want. Also we have the hand R, so you can just bring it here, place it and parent this to the host 2 wrist so that it moves with the wrist. So there you go, we have the arms and we have the legs. Now let's just clean up the torso and connect everything on the body. For the torso, we need to create a pre-comp or a composition right inside this comp. Composition is basically a group of layers. For example, TIE, this is a group itself and under which we have these many layers. So we are going to group 2 more layers, the torso design and torso. Just select both of those layers, right click and select pre-compose. You can name this layer as torso, click OK. And basically now both of these layers are grouped. You can see when I move them, and if you double click on this pre-comp, inside you'll find only those 2 layers. Now here we will simply mask these shapes which are coming out of the main shape by the main shape itself, so that they sit inside and gets cropped from the edges. To do that, we have to select the base torso layer, duplicate this by pressing Command or Ctrl D on the keyboard. Take the duplicate above the design, so the design layer sits between both layers, which are torso 1 and torso 2. Both layers are the same. Now just so that they don't move away from each other, I'm going to parent the top one to the bottom one, so if I move this bottom one, both of them moves together. Here now we have to add track matte to the middle layer, the design layer here. So if you see, there is a track matte option here, and right now it's none. If you just select it and select alpha matte torso 2, which means this design layer will be masked by the torso 2. Okay, so select that and immediately you see that this now sits. And if I move this design layer from left to right, it feels like the body is moving from left to right. And this is a small cheat we can do for the body turns. Now let's go back to our main composition here. We can close this group, and you'll notice that the design now sits right inside it. We need to hide the right hand design layer here, which is the arm R, and I'm just going to hide this and shy guy this. Now let's connect both of these arms to the shoulders. Let's select the shoulder here. Just simply align the design where you think the shoulders will be, and then let's select the wrist itself and bring it closer. Let's do the same for the other arm. Now since we parented the legs to the hips, we need to parent the torso to the hips now. So just grab the pick whip, drop it on the hips. So now if I move the hips, the torso moves with it. And since the arms are really not connected to the torso, we can go ahead and simply grab both the shoulders and parent it to the torso itself. So shoulders are parented to torso and the torso to the hips, and when we move the hips, everything moves with it now. right? But I'm going to disconnect the shoulders because I also want to give some controls to the torso so that the character can bend forward and backward just a little bit. If that is not a need, you can skip this step and just connect the shoulders like I did here with the entire composition of the torso. Let's select the torso, open up Duik again, and just like we did for the legs, let's rig the torso itself. This time the main bone will be at the hip, will go from down to up to the chest, and then we'll connect the shoulders to the chest control. Before we do that, let's disconnect the shoulders as we have parented it to the torso. So just select none so that they are disconnected and torso is now independent. And also, if you notice that the composition consists of the entire work area, the canvas size. So this group, if you go inside, is very big and we don't really want that. We want to crop this to its minimum size that we need, otherwise the character rig file becomes very heavy and it has to calculate the entire canvas every time for that group itself. So to do that, let me just slide this over a little bit. If you notice, there's a little button called region of interest at the bottom of the composition viewer. Just select that region of interest and click and drag the area that you want. We'll just keep slight margins from top and the sides and make a selection out of it, and then just go to composition and crop comp to region of interest. So we have just defined the region of interest and we are now going to crop this composition or the group to the region of interest. So just if you select that, now you'll notice that the entire group canvas is reduced, and if I just go to composition settings, I can check that it is now 233 by 325 in width and height. When I'll go back to the main group, you'll notice that this is now moved to the top, so we'll just have to reposition this a little bit. You can simply eyeball this, it doesn't have to be very much accurate. And once we have placed that, we are now ready to add pins to this to create a IK rig. Let's select our puppet pin tool, add a pin at the hip, then a middle pin, and then the chest. So we have 3 pins and you can check them out under deform, and let's again rename them. This will be T1 for torso 1, T2, and then T3. Now select all 3 of them again and select add pins from Duik so that it works its magic and we get the 3 pin controllers. Now this time select from T3, T2, and then T1. So we want the controller from here and the hip part needs to be fixed. So that is why we are now selecting inversely. Initially we selected from bottom to top, which is where we wanted the control. So let's select 3, 2, 1 and then click on auto rig. And here we go, we got an IK rig for our torso, which we can bend a little bit. This is not too flexible, but we can get a little bit of control with this and a little bit of stretchiness, which adds more possibilities to the character animation. Now let's select both the shoulders again and let me slide this over, parent this to T3, which is the chest. Okay, so our shoulders are now parented to the chest. So if I move the controller, let me bring this down here, and if I move the controller, the shoulders will move with it. And if I want the character to bend in the other direction, let me just type in -100 here. So now if I move the controller, the character will bend forwards, which is more natural in this scenario since our character is looking at screen right. And let us parent the pin 1, the T1, to the hip again. So hip still remains the main controller, which if we move, will move the torso, and in this case it's giving a stretch. So let's parent this T3 control to the hips as well, so that the entire character moves when we move the hip. And you'll notice that her hands are stuck where they are. So You can leave them be if you want that type of animation, or otherwise we can again go to wrist 1 and wrist 2 and also parent them to the hips. So when we move the hips, the entire body moves with it. Let us now hide these 3 bones as we don't need them any longer. Shake them, and there we go. We have the entire body rigged and ready to be animated. But of course we have to do a lot of work on the face rig itself, so let's just jump right into it. Let us start with organizing the face layers first, and then connecting them with null objects, and then actually starting with joysticks and sliders rigging. If you notice, I have hidden these 2 layers, the happy blink and the blinks. So if I just turn on the blinks layer, the character will blink. I can show you how this looks isolated. So this is the layer which has the filled skin colored shape, so that it covers the eye white as well, directly with one layer. Blinks are pretty fast, so this works. I also have laughing mouth, but we'll do the mouth rigging later on. So I'm just going to hide it for now. Let us start with the eyes first. If you see, the pupil layer is coming out of the eye whites, and this is the eye white layer, right? And we have the black kajal layer at the back, so we don't need to do anything to it. It can just be parented to the main null that we'll create for the face. We can either duplicate this eye white, put it above the pupils, and just make it alpha matte just like we did for the body, and this will work perfectly. We can then move around the pupils and it will just show up only inside the eye white eyeball area. But there is another way to do this as well. There is an effect in After Effects called set matte, which is much easier because you don't have to really duplicate the layers and create so many layers and make the rig heavy, right? So we can just apply the set matte effect, just drag and drop on the pupils layer, and in the effects controls panel, take matte from layer, just select this as EW. Okay, and now this is not working because the layers are not rasterized. If it is an After Effects shape, it works directly, but since we have imported this from Illustrator, this will not work directly, but we have to click on this little checkbox here. If you see right in front of the layer name, there is a little sun type of icon which we need to turn on for both the layers, and now you can see that this works perfectly. What this checkbox does is it continuously rasterizes the layer, which means that since it is a vector layer, no matter how much I scale this up, it will not break, it will not pixelate. It will for every frame use it like a vector layer without any loss in quality. So we just have to turn this on whenever we want to use set matte. That is just one of the limitations for set matte right now, but it doesn't matter since we are not giving it any other effect. But please note that this does not work for rigged layer, puppet pins layer, and in turn it does not work with Duik rigging. Because you add pins to a certain layer, it does not act as a vector layer, and that is why I've pre-comped the torso and mask this inside the comp and then rig the comp itself, and then do it right outside inside this group. Okay, so that is just another limitation for this. And let us do the same for the head layer as well. So here is the hairline, the hair layer, and I am going to use set matte. Actually I've already applied set matte to this and selected head, and again since these two buttons are not active, it is not working. And if I just turn this on, you'll notice that the hairline sits perfectly, the actual hair sits perfectly inside the head and they are cropped. Okay, so if I move, they'll move inside the confines of the head shape. Now we have all the layers cleaned and in place. Let us start with creating a simple null object. So just right click out of any layer, go to new and just select null object. And now we have created a null object, and this is just a controller. Again, just like the other ones, it will not show up in rendering. This will control any layers that we will parent to it. Let's simply rename this as face. Now I'm going to connect all of these facial elements to this layer which I want to move. The eyes, the eyebrows, the hairline, the mouth and the blinks. Okay, so I'm selecting happy blink, blinks, even the open mouth. So all of these shapes which needs to move. Let me just turn them on for clarity. Then the mouth closed, pupils, eye white, which are eyeballs, and both the eyebrows, even the kajal, the black layer. So we have all these elements selected. I'm just going to click on this and drop it on face. So when I move this layer, all the elements of the face move with them. Let's just hide these blinks for now. And we also need to connect the hair line to the face controller. So now if I move this up, it feels like she's moving the face up. If I move it down, and same with side to side motion, the face of the character is ready to be rigged with joysticks and slider. When you open up this window, it might get overwhelming again, although it is a very simple UI. For this to work, we have to set keys on the timeline for the controllers. Alright, when we will move the face and the face turns, all of the elements of the face will move, and we need to set 5 key positions for the face: the side to side movement, up and down, and the original center one. Okay, so we'll start with the origin, the center position, which is the default position in which the character is right now. So let's just open up position values for the face. So you can press P on the keyboard to bring it up. When we'll move the face, the ears and her ponies will also move. So let's select the face, both the ears, both the ponytails and the pigtail. Okay, press P to bring up the position values and just click on this little clock icon to key them on the first frame, on the 0 frame, whichever is the first one, so that the original position of all of them is recorded here in the timeline. Okay, you can press U to close and U again to open up all the keyed properties, and only those properties who has keys on them will show up here in the timeline, which is much easier, right? Now we have all these set up. I'm going to click on this little colored box here and just select them and give them a different color, so it's easy to identify. And now we have all the position keys. Just click, drag and select all of the keys, right, and click on the origin to lock the origin position for these elements. So I'm just going to click them. Now zoom into the timeline by pressing minus or plus on the keyboard. So you see the timeline here is 1 second, 2, 3 and 4 seconds, and if you just press on the plus button, you can really go inside the frames, and you should be able to see each and every frame here, right? So just go to the next frame, click on origin again to set up the original position it has, and then start moving according to your pose. So I'm going to move the face to the right side, the extreme right side, and since she's looking at the right screen right or her left, her ears will come to the opposite side just a little bit because they are a little bit at the back. Her ponytails will go a lot to the left side, screen left side, right, and also her pigtail here. So the difference between the two frames is something like this. Okay, so she's like, this is the extreme pose of left looking pose. Then let's come back to our layer stack and select all of those elements again and click on origin position once more. Once you do that, it will go back to the original position, and now we can adjust it to her right side, okay, or screen left. So I'm just moving the face to the right side. This time the ears will go, her back ear will come to the right, and her left side of ear will adjust accordingly. I think on the second one we need to change the position of the ear a little bit because it's looking a bit weird. Maybe it will go to the right because it's closer to the camera. Okay, this looks better. Then it goes back. Okay, and here again we need to move her ponytails. We need to move her ponytails to the right slightly more. I'm sorry, I have to select these two. Alright, and also her pigtail slightly to the right. So this is her position of looking towards the right. This ear can come out slightly. Yeah, this looks better. Then let's go to the fourth frame, and I think you got the idea of what exactly I'm doing. We just need to record the position of each keys, right, each pose. So let's click on the origin button again, so it comes back to its default position, and now adjust it to be looking upwards. So I'll just move the face up a little bit, and her ears will come slightly down because they are in perspective. Even her pigtail will come down a little bit, and her ponytails as well. And just check with the original position that if it's looking good. So this is the neutral position and this is her looking up, and I think it looks good. Now the last pose will be when she's looking down. So let's select all of these layers again, click on origin and create a pose looking down. So let's bring the face down. Similarly, the ears will go up a little bit. Both the ponytails will go up as well. So it is contrasting the face because of the depth, right? Feel free to play around with the position till you are happy. The poses should make sense, they should work. So this is the origin position and this is the down position. Alright. Now to simply create a controller for all this, basically we have all our 5 poses, left, right, up and down. Okay, so select all of these keys by clicking and dragging over them, and just click on this create new joystick button, which is a 2 square button here. Just click on it and give it a name. I'm just going to leave it as it is right now and click on OK. What this will do is create a UI button here itself. So this is the main shape, and inside that there is a red button. And the magic of joysticks and slider is that with this one controller I can have the entire head turn. So if I turn it to the right, the face will turn to screen right, similarly to the left, up and down. And it's that simple. Joysticks and sliders calculates the frames or the animation between the keyframes that we have created and just moves them according to the UI. So if I even go diagonally, it goes up and towards her left, and similarly to the other side as well. So we get a complete freedom of movement, a smooth movement of head turns, which really looks 3D if we are doing the animation right. And since we have parented the blink with the face control itself, it will move with the eyes, also the happy blink, the normal blink and the mouth as well. Now when we have this mouth on, we need to hide away this closed mouth, and to create a mouth rig, it is the exact same procedure, but we will be doing that with After Effects shapes. So let me show you how. The mouth layer is the Illustrator layer that we have, and the teeth, the tongue and the mouth shape is all on one layer, so we don't have any control over the individual elements. Let me just hide the closed mouth shape. To create After Effects shape right from the Illustrator shape design that we already have, just right click on mouth, go to create and create shapes from vector layer. This is exactly what it does. It creates After Effects shape from the vector layer. Okay, and once it's created, the mouth layer is automatically hidden and you get this mouth outline layer. So you see that there are now 3 shapes. If you drop them down and go to contents, you have group 1, group 2 and group 3. Now I can try to show you how you can mask the teeth and the tongue right here itself with shape merge effects, but that is a little bit too complex. So I want to simplify this by just creating different layers for these different shapes. So if you consider this group 1, these are the teeth, just cut this out by pressing Command X or Control X and create a new shape layer. Just right click here, select new and go to shape layer. So this empty shape layer will be created, and now you can paste this by pressing Ctrl or Command V, and the teeth will be pasted in that shape layer. We can now move this and place it anywhere we want. Notice that the anchor point is way outside the shape, so we can just go to pan behind tool or press Y on the keyboard. Maybe turn on the snapping so it snaps to the center easily and just place it there. Let's do the same for the tongue as well. We now have these 3 layers, and I'm just going to simply apply set matte to teeth and the tongue and selecting mouth outlines as their mask. Now we have this mouth where we can control the tongue, the teeth and the actual mouth shape separately. This will give us poses for the mouse, and those poses we will link to Joysticks and Slider to create a control where we can just slide the control to shift through different poses of the mouth. The difference here is that we need to key not the position of the mouth, because it's not going to be the same shape that is going to move up and down or side to side, but the shape itself is going to change. For this we need to go to that particular layer, contents group, and key the path. So we have these 4 vertex points which we can actually select and change the shape of. And with this I'm going to record different shapes like A, E, M and O, U, so the basic shapes which creates the mouth animation. We'll select any 5 shapes and we'll create those shapes and move the teeth and tongue accordingly, just with keying the position. So if we select all 3 and press U, you can see the position is keyed for teeth and the tongue, and the path is keyed for the mouth outline. Now if this is the default pose, I'm going to select all these 3 keys just like before and click on origin. Then let's move on to the first frame and create a pose. Okay, so let's select the path, drag and select the vertexes and create a exaggerated or A pose. Play around with this, get the shapes that you want as per your character designs, and don't forget to change the position of teeth and tongues as well. So if the mouth is moving and opening wide, the teeth will move up a little bit and the tongue will go down a little bit. Now we have these keys again, select them, go to the next frame. Let's click on origin so it comes back to its origin position and change it to let's say for the shape of E, or rather it's better to go from R to shape of O or U. So let's create that pose. I'm going to get this closed, adjust the bezier handles so they are not too sharp at the edges, and this will take some trial and error. Like I said, you can have some freedom as per your character design. So this is an O shape instead of an U. Let me open this up a little bit so it looks more like an O. I'll adjust the teeth a little bit and bring the tongue down. You can change the order of these shapes just by selecting the keys and moving them forward and backward and adding another shape in between, so that when you move the control, the relationship of shapes will change. I'll just show that to you in a minute once we complete creating all the shapes. Let's move forward and create a sad shape, because character can be sad as well. So let's create a sad shape here. Go back to origin, select the path. It's important to select the actual paths drop down here to get these vertices showing, and then you can drag and select. Okay, so let's bring down the smile to the frown. Just like surprised shape, you know, it's sad shape here. Maybe only the tongue will move a little bit. Let's go forward, go back to origin again for all these three shapes, and create a M closed mouth shape here. So the closed mouth shape will be simply a closed mouth. It might not be visible, but when you animate it going from one vowel to another, it will look good. So don't worry too much about getting this perfect right now. We can edit this later. I'm just going to go back to the O shape and create it as more of a U shape, because we can always get an O out of an U in between. This might not make sense right now, but I promise this will work out fine once we connect it to the rig. Alright, so we have our 5 shapes. I'm just going to reorder them a little bit. So I'm going to move this aside, take the sad shape, the upside down frown, and then an open shape, then an U, and in the end an M. So I'm just going to place all these shapes in 5 frames. Alright, select all of them like we did before, and just create a new joystick. Let's name this mouse this time. Press on OK, and there we go. We got another controller here, which we can select, move aside. We can scale this up as well later, and we'll do that in a minute, but I just want to show you how this works. Now if I move this from side to side, you'll notice that the actual mouth is being animated, the shapes are being animated. Okay, and that's all we need to create a mouth rig. Of course, we can just unbind them by clicking on this unbind key, and then go back and change the shapes, and then come back and bind them again. It's that simple. So let's select this. Let me get this back to the center. Select the main blue shape here and scale this down a little bit so that the controls scale down and it's easier for us to see. Let's do that for the head turn as well. Okay, I'm just going to keep this a little bit bigger. So we have the head turn, the head's going up and down, and we also have the mouth where I can actually animate the shape smoothly. And this is the power of joysticks and slider. It gives us very smooth animations with just keyframes, and we have to set them only once. We don't need to keep setting up keys. We just need to animate one control to manipulate many layers smoothly from one pose to another. With this, most of our rig is done. We have the body, we have the arms and legs, and we also have the face controls. We can animate the blinks with just turning them on and off, and we also have the pupils on separate layers, so we can make the character look wherever we want. Now let's just add the finishing touches, create more controls, organize the layers so that the rig is really animatable, and will be good to go. So since we are on the head, let's complete that first. Now we have too many layers outside, and there are different controllers which are really not parented to anything, so it's all a clutter in the layer stack here. Let us simply organize and make this entire head control and the mouth control and the layers themselves sorted and easy to use. To group them all, let us now select all of this, but before we do that, make sure that the tongue and the teeth are parented to the mouth outlines, because if the mouth moves, the teeth and tongue should move with that, especially when we are moving the head up and down and side to side. So let's select all of the head controls and the head layers right up to the hair and also the pigtail. So we are leaving the neck out of it and just selecting everything that we have created here. Also make sure you include the blinks and the closed mouth inside that selection as well. Right click and click on pre-compose. Let's give this a name, head main. Okay, just press enter and this will create a group inside which all the controls and the layers of the head are. So already we have sorted a lot of layers inside one group, one pre-comp, which will be easier to use. But you'll be wondering that how the controllers have gone inside the pre-comp and now we will not be able to manipulate them right from here. Just like we do for the wrist, to set any pose we will have to go inside the head group, but that is not the case. Joysticks and sliders have a feature that these controls can be then exported to the main comp, and it's pretty easy. Let us rename the mouth control here because we already have a layer with mouth name on it. So just press enter and let's rename this mouth control. Just select the control, any control. We want both the controls to be outside with the other controls of the rig. So let's select this mouth control first. At the bottom of this window, select this option, move joystick to parent comp. So the parent comp means if this is a main comp and there is a comp inside this comp, so for this head comp, TIE becomes the parent. Okay, so it is the main group. And once you select this and just send it to parent, click on this to parent button and this control will turn red. That means you cannot move it from here, but this control will now show up outside this comp itself. So we can move this outside of that comp. Let's do the same for the head as well. Let us rename this as head control and send it out to the main comp as well. Now we have both the controls, so I can turn the head down and I can give it a different pose here with the mouth, and all the layers are sorted inside this comp, so I don't have to worry about too many layers in my main comp. Once that is done, let us sort the head comp itself. Right now the head composition is of the entire document size. We need to reduce that to make the rig lighter. So you see there is a lot of empty space here. Let's just cut that out. Again, go to the bottom here and select this region of interest button. Click on it, click and drag to make the selection here, and this much is enough I think. And once that is selected, go to composition, crop comp to region of interest. And the comp is now smaller. That means it will be lighter on the system, but this will again move the head to an awkward position, so we just need to reposition this again, and this looks roughly right. Now I'll just press Y on the keyboard or go to pan behind tool and set the anchor point here for the head itself, because this is where the head is going to rotate from. And once I have the pivot here, if I rotate this, you'll see that it rotates right where the joint will be. Let's do the same for the neck. Select the neck and bring the rotation point or the pivot point where it's supposed to be joined to the body. Now the neck will again be parented to the torso here. So if I move this, the neck should move. And since we have not connected the head, we need to do the same for the head main comp. Let's just parent this to the neck. If I move the chest control, it in turn moves the shoulders and neck, and the neck moves the head. Something like this. Now let's turn our attention to the body, and since hips are the main control for the body, let's create a null for it because it gets difficult to select the hips as it's not clearly visible. I'm just going to right click here go to new and create a null object. Let's rename this as hips control, and I'll place that roughly where the hips will be. Okay, and let's connect the hips layer to the hips control, so when we move the control, the hips will move, and in turn everything else will move as well. Now what if we want to place the character in the scene? We don't want to go ahead and select the hips and then both of these controllers and set keys on them to move all of this, right? So let's create another null. Just go to new and create a null object. Rename this as character main. Maybe the scale can be bigger just to make it more visible. I'll just place this right between her legs here, and now just select the hips and both the legs controller which are somewhere down here, and then parent this to the character main. So if we move the character here, everything else should move, the entire character should move. So we have really a global controller for the character, and then the hips, then the chest, and of course in the end the head rotation itself. Now we also want to move the mouth and the head manipulation controls here from joysticks with the main controller. So you have these blue layers which are separate from the controllers, right? So let's select them and parent them to the main control as well. So now if I move this main control, I just bring the character in the scene, and I can now place this anywhere I want. In the layer stack, we really don't need anything else, so we are not really going to move the torso or the hips layers themselves. So I can just shy them away from the layer. They will be there again. We can turn them on with this little alienage button, but we don't need those controllers to be visible in the layer stack because we are not going to set any keys on them. The only main keys we are going to set are these actual controllers of the rig. So let us clean these layers here as well, even the hand, the legs, and you may need to adjust the shoulders as per the poses, so you can do that by selecting the shoulder control. So if there is an extreme pose and you want to adjust the shoulder, you can do that, but right now we don't need it, so I'm just going to hide them as well. I'm going to hide the hose, and I'm going to hide the origin controls here. And there you go, we have a fully functioning rig, a simple but very effective rig with all the controllers that you might need for After Effects character animation. We have the main control for the entire body, then we have the hips where we can just manipulate the upper body here and give the character different poses. Also we have controllers for the hands, so both the wrists and their bends can be easily adjusted by just going to the effects panel here and changing the bend direction. Then we have the neck for additional rotation if you want, and most importantly we have the head control which is created with joysticks and sliders, so the character can look up and down. The poses morph between themselves very effectively and very smoothly. We also have the mouth control here where we have different shapes to animate the lip sync of the character. And if we want to animate blinks, we can go inside this comp and adjust the pupils themselves. So we can also give these layers a null if we want, just like we did for the other, to make them a controller instead of adding keys to the pupils layer, but that is a personal choice. And we can also animate the opacity of the blinks here, so there's a happy blink, then there's a normal blink, and if we don't want this open mouth, we can just hide those layers and turn on the closed mouth itself. Now this is a very dynamic rig, and of course there are many more ways to add more layers to it. But even with these basic or kind of advanced controls, we can animate the entire scenes and push After Effects to give better results than very basic rigs. We are creating fake 3D here, 2.5D with the head, and morphing shapes with the mouth by using joysticks and sliders. So it's a good combination of Duik, Rubberhose and joysticks and sliders to create kind of an advanced rig which can be used for good quality 2D animation. I hope you had fun creating the advanced character rig. We have used 3 plugins and the possibilities with those plugins are endless, so I encourage you to just go ahead and explore more options. We have barely scratched the surface, and as with anything art, it can be more simpler and complex at the same time, so just go ahead and explore and create more. If you have any questions, please post them in the comments below. Give the video a like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.